Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode one, part B of the Boardmen Don't Get Paid podcast. I'm your host, Drew Sharma, joined by my co-host
Lawrence.
and our special guest, Mr. Yash Varma.
How you guys doing?
So in part 1A, we discussed particularly the Western Conference and what our expectations are for those teams this season and the insanity of the offseason. So for this episode, we wanted to talk about the East. And what better way to start off than giving the floor to a Eastern Conference team fanatic, Mr. Yash Varma, who is a diehard Bulls fan. So maybe we could start the discussion there. How are you feeling about your Chicago Bulls this year?
Pretty good. I think they've made some good moves. They made some good draft picks. They've had a very solid rebuild in terms of how conventional textbook rebuilds should be executed. First thing I'd like to say is I'd like to talk about the Otto Porter trade that they made last year. I feel like that was a pretty good trade. I wasn't really too big on Otto Porter before, especially with that contract. But I feel like players, leaving Washington, somehow just find like a new meaning of life, and they feel. I feel like they're just like more motivated. So that doesn't speak too well in terms of Washington's culture. But Otto Porter came in, he turned it up. They did pretty well. There's a little bit of turmoil last year with when they fired Hoiberg and then brought in Jim Boylan. There's like rumors of there were actually like player rifts and whatnot, but I think it all got settled at the end, and everyone was all on the same page and united.
And Zach LaVine had a crazy scoring year. And I like that you pointed out the Washington Wizards, because is there any team that is a bigger disaster right now than that? Their salary cap is, I can't even find the word to describe how terrible it is. What can they do to get out of there? Do you like the direction that they're going? Are they even going a direction? What do you think, Lawrence?
I think you can definitely, there is something that they can do, and we all are thinking it, like, where's Bradley Beal going to go? I think that's one way of getting rid of that, Same thing with John Wall. Yeah, he's injured. I don't know if any team is. That's the worst contract in the NBA. Like, what? Hands down.
Not going to age well, because that is a player that is heavily dependent on his athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting close to the age of 30, which, generally speaking, is when athleticism starts to show a little bit of decline.
Yeah.
And he's coming off a horrific injury that's going to keep him out of the entire season next year.
Yeah, and so I liked what they did when they signed Thomas Bryant. Like he played very well for them last year, but it's just like you let some guy like Satoransky walk, who where is he? He's on the Bulls now, right?
He's on the Bulls.
Yeah, Otto Porter, so it's just like, what are they actually doing? Like, you let your young players leave, you sign a young player, you trade core players. Like, I don't really know what direction they're going right now. It's kind of up in a flux. I think I can honestly say, the thing is, they still might make the playoffs, which is kind of weird to say, but it's more.
I honestly don't see that, but I can hear what you're saying, because the bottom of the
It's
East,
more the fact that the East is awful.
right?
Like, obviously, a couple of playoff teams, Charlotte didn't even make the playoffs, but they're definitely not making the playoffs this year.
And it's funny that you mentioned Charlotte, because we just continue this theme right now of dumpster fires. That was the worst offseason signing by far, in my opinion. 3 years, $57 million for Terry Rozier, not keeping Kemba Walker when rumors were that Michael Jordan was like one of the main reasons the Supermax even exists. To keep people like that in the market, in those smaller markets. what is Charlotte doing? They have over $100 million invested in per year invested in players like Terry Rozier, Bismack Biyombo, Nicholas Batum, Kid Gilchrist. What is going on over there?
Yeah, if I knew, I would be a NBA GM, but I don't. Like, Batum has been awful. Was awful last year. MKG was awful last year. Like their best player, obviously Kemba was their best player, but like
They let Jeremy Lamb go too.
Jeremy Lamb walked away. He's gone now too. So what is it that are they really? Do they really think they can build a future around Terry Rozier, which is basically like a lesser version of Kemba Walker?
That if I was Jordan, I would go sign Carmelo right now. Like you have nothing on that team to sell anyone. Nothing. I mean, you got Miles Bridges dunks. That's about it.
I mean, see, that's the thing. Like, Atlanta did something amazing last year. Like, they knew they were going to suck, or I think it was 2 years ago. Atlanta knew they were going to be awful. But what they did was they offered, like, beer and nachos to, like, all the people who attend on, like, Tuesday nights for, like, $2 for beer and nachos. So that's one way of getting people to go to
Well,
your games.
I think if you don't make it as a GM, you should, take that point and get into that marketing department because that's a great idea. And I think, speaking of Charlotte, didn't you interview for Charlotte, Yash? Just to sidetrack for a second.
Yeah, that was like 6 or 7 years ago as a player operations analyst.
Maybe if they hired you, they would be in a much better place right now. And this is karma for the Varma.
Well, I wouldn't have drafted all the tall or that rumor where Boston was offering 3 first-round draft picks for to move up and instead to take Frank Kaminsky, and instead
I thought it was for Justice Winslow when they were doing that.
it was either it may have been to move up to take Justice Winslow, but they were trying to get Charlotte's spot. So yeah, you're probably right on that. They're trying to get Charlotte's spot, and instead they took Frank Kaminsky.
All right, before we get too sidetracked on this Charlotte whole thing, like, at least tell me, what do you guys think is the shining light about Charlotte's roster and future? What is the one bright spot for them?
Oh my goodness. You're going to have to give me a second to think about that because I cannot even come. I mean, Miles Bridges dunks. That guy can. Did you see his was it a windmill in Summer League?
Miles Bridges is good. That guy balled out at Michigan State.
He's really good at dunking. So at least they have that. But outside of that, I do not see anything on that team.
Who did they draft?
They drafted P.J. Washington. I think.
That name doesn't even sound exciting. I mean, at least before they had the Lamb and Bacon connection, they don't even have the Lamb and Bacon
I
connection.
have Malik Monk. I mean,
Monks and Bacon, they don't have the same.
yeah.
It is an atrocious roster, and is for as good of a businessman with shoes and as good of a basketball player Michael Jordan was, he is by far the worst at doing whatever he thinks he's doing as far as talent evaluation, because this is horrific.
So the only shining light I see at the end of that is that in 2 years all those contracts will be off the books. That's the only shining light that I see.
That's a long 2 years for those poor fans in Charlotte.
Do they have any future picks, at least? Any valuable future picks? Anything?
They
I
have.
don't think they've been an asset collector like the Thunder or the Grizzlies are right now. I don't recall them doing
They
anything.
only own their own picks, so
Which may end up being good, but because the tanking rules have sort of changed, they may not be that good. As you saw, some teams, leapfrogged over others that were bottom. That did almost end up in the playoffs. That leapfrog teams that were terrible. So that it may not work out for them. Now, we just discussed a few dumpster fires. What about your take overall in the Eastern Conference? What teams do you think are going to make the playoffs this year? Does Toronto drop off with Kawhi gone? Are they still a playoff team? What do you think, Yash?
So I'll start with Toronto real quick. They make the playoffs. I think Siakam's going to be in a position to win Most Improved Player second year in a row.
Did you just call him Siakam?
Siakam.
And that may be right, but I've never heard that pronunciation.
I see it. I see it how it yeah.
Call it how you
Siakam.
see it. All right.
So I
I mean,
feel
it's
like
just fun to say Siakam.
Siakam.
Like
Pascal
E40 would kill that on a track, but
so yeah. So I feel like he's in a position to win Most Improved Player second year in a row. They've got
the second year in a row. Has that ever been done?
I don't know, but it would be a really cool feat.
How
I
can
think
you improve on improvement?
that's. I mean, I don't know. He could
like-
definitely do it.
I'm like actually kind of agreeing with that, to be honest.
That's-
Like it kind of makes sense that he could totally win Most Improved Player.
A spicy take from you guys on the spicy P.
But I got my own Most Improved Player
That's a
coming up.
tapioca take. Man. That's a tapioca take. That's boba.
All right.
Yeah, it's a tapioca. I will gladly take free boba if you guys think Pascal Siakam's winning Most Improved Player. I will give you 3-1 on that. I'll give you 3 bobas if he does it, and you guys give me 1 if he doesn't.
Well, I'll think about that. But
I mean, I have my take for Most Improved Player. But he's coming up.
so yeah. So Eastern Conference.
Sorry to cut you off, Josh. Lawrence? What is your position on the Sixers this year?
I love the Sixers. I think that I legitimately think that they have a shot of making the NBA Finals, even winning the NBA Finals this year.
You like what they did with
I love
getting
what they
Ross
did.
Richardson?
Yeah, I think getting Richardson and Al Horford, like that is huge for them. Horford was like the Embiid defender. Now they're teammates.
And now they can have
they're
him
in the
play
East.
in games where Joel Embiid, sits out as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like Horford has been a very consistent NBA veteran for the longest time. He always puts up stats as a winner. Guy was on a Hawks team that was a number 1 seed a couple years back. Now he's
Yep.
Celtics team that were they the 1 seed?
They were the one seed.
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, like he just knows how to win. I don't think he's ever been on a losing team, and that guy won what
2 chips in college.
Florida, yeah, exactly. And now he's on another team where they have the infrastructure there, like Embiid, Simmons, who the rumors have it as him shooting 3-pointers now. I don't know if I believe that, but and then Josh Richardson is like one of the most underrated players that they got in that trade. Like no one's talking about him, but just 2 years ago, like he had a down year this year, and like for his standards, but 2 years ago that dude was carrying the Miami Heat.
That guy is a great fit with Ben Simmons. I mean, 3-and-D.
Yeah.
He is going to fit nicely with them. They did lose J.J. Redick and Jimmy Butler, which is, big loss, but I thought they bounced back pretty well from that by getting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also the fact that, like, them losing Jimmy Butler is a big loss, but I felt like Jimmy Butler it's like one of those, what was that saying? Too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that's kind of what happened in Philadelphia. Like, because Jimmy Butler was there, Tobias Harris, who we haven't talked about yet, didn't get his chance to shine. And
We'll see this though, Jimmy Butler looked like their best player in the playoffs.
Oh, for sure. He was the one who wasn't afraid of the moment, And I mean, they're all another year older now. Hopefully Simmons can get over his playoff fright. I think Simmons' biggest issue was Kawhi guarding him in the playoffs, right? And there's no more
I think
Kawhi.
his biggest issue was anytime he was 5 feet away from the basket or more.
Yeah. But I mean, that dude, like Simmons, like every single time he saw Kawhi, like it was just a turnover every single time. Like he had like a mental block when it came to Kawhi last year in the playoffs. And I think
Absolutely.
now with Kawhi in the Western Conference, like who is there to stop Simmons? Like Lowry is no problem for him. I honestly, the East is so bad. Like it's gonna be a cakewalk for either 76ers, who I just talked about, or a team I think you like a lot, the Milwaukee Bucks, Drew.
That is a team that I like a lot, and that is the team that I think is going to win the championship next year. Not a team from the West. I think the Milwaukee Bucks will win the championship next year. One more year of growth from Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak. I think he's going to come back even more motivated. I think he's going to come back with a respectable 3-point shot. I really think that's going to happen. I thought they retained a lot of the players that were crucial. Yeah, they lost Malcolm Brogdon, which is not the greatest thing, but I thought they recouped well by getting Wes Matthews. They got Robin Lopez, and I'm really happy for them that they kept George Hill. That guy played amazing in the playoffs. That team is disgusting on defense. They've got so much length, and Giannis has shooters all around him. And I think that's the thing with, if you look at all the teams at the top of the East, that team's going to have the most chemistry. You see the Celtics, effectively they will have more chemistry this year by losing Kyrie, but that's still going to be a new team. The main ball handler is going to be a completely new guy. The Sixers, they're bringing in Al Horford. They're going to have to adjust with that, playing with that half-court style, bigger dudes on the team, less wings. The Pacers are going to have Victor Oladipo come back. We don't know how healthy he's going to be. They have to implement Brogdon. And Toronto, they probably aren't going to be at the top this year. They're going to be in the mix for the playoffs, but they lost Kawhi. I think Milwaukee has a really, really good chance of running through the East, honestly.
What do you think, Yash? Do you think the Bucks are going to win the ship next year? Or sorry, do you think the Bucks are going to win the East next year?
I think Philly's going to win the East.
There we go. Philly's going to win the East.
Philly's going to win the ship as well.
Are we dropping some Boba on that?
We got two Philly believers here.
I will take your Boba gladly.
I mean, did you see how bad Giannis looked against a competent defense last year in the playoffs?
I don't see Kawhi in his way anymore. So
I see a better team in his way.
Well, I'm telling you right now, Giannis is going to come back even better than he was last year.
I mean, he could. If he can develop a jumper, I think definitely. I think him and Simmons are both in the same boat. Like they're very, very good players, but they can be like top 5 players in the NBA if they knew how to shoot the basketball.
I think Giannis is already there.
Sorry, yeah, Giannis is probably already there, but Giannis can be a top
1 if he gets that jump shot.
I mean, it was just he looked so bad against the Raptors in that series. Like any single time.
I think after game 2, the first 2 games he looked fine.
Yeah.
Game 3, once they switched Kawhi, it was a completely different series.
That's the thing. Like I think the 76ers match up so much better against the Bucks. Like the only reason the 76ers weren't in the finals was because of one very, very lucky bounce.
The quad doink.
I think the Bucks actually match up pretty well with the Sixers too. I mean, there was a couple games where Giannis basically abused Ben Simmons in the paint, and he was defending Joel Embiid and got the better of him on several plays. So the guy can guard any player on the court. He can protect the rim, switch him on to anyone. Great playmaker. Gets to the basket from half court with 2 steps. And he's going to come back with a jumper. Mark my words.
I just like
they're gonna win it all.
More you look at Giannis, he has Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and Wes Matthews as a starting lineup, right? Bledsoe is an interesting case. Like, I don't know if he's going to do well or if he's just going to completely shit the bed.
I mean, the one thing that he does bring to the table, he's always going to be a good defender, in my opinion. And I think, yeah, he hasn't showed up in the playoffs the way you would like. But I think next year they will be smarter about giving those minutes to George Hill more, because that guy balled out. He fits better when he's on the court with Giannis because he can stretch the court better than Eric Bledsoe. And I thought George Hill was playing phenomenal defense too.
So I'll ask you a question. I'll ask both of you. If you remove the best player from Philly and the best player from Milwaukee, who would you take after that?
I would take Philly in that scenario for sure.
So you'd want to focus your entire defensive game plan on limiting Giannis and forcing the Bucks supporting cast to beat you. And I feel like that's what Toronto did effectively this playoff.
I agree with you, but I think that Giannis is gonna come. This is just my own take that I think Giannis is gonna come back with that missing ingredient that he hasn't necessarily had the past few years. I think you see that guy, his work ethic, his demeanor. He wants it. You can just tell with some guys that they really want it. I haven't seen that from Ben Simmons personally. Giannis is
Yeah.
out there like he wants to be the best player in the NBA. He's not okay with being fifth.
Ben
You know?
Simmons is too busy dating supermodels and all that stuff.
Exactly. So that's my take. Another elite team that we haven't really talked about, which us Laker fans never really like talking about, is the Celtics. So what do you guys think about them? Do you think they did well for losing Kyrie and essentially getting a lesser version of him, but also in the process probably increasing their team chemistry, or does losing Kyrie and particularly losing Horford put them at a much more of a disadvantage this year compared to the last one? Take it away,
Um,
Josh.
yeah, so Horford was their defensive anchor. I feel like that was a big loss for them. Losing Kyrie, I think the Celtics proved the year before that they could compete without Kyrie. And I think this is going to be a resurgent year for Jason Tatum and a solid year for Jaylen Brown. I think Hayward now that he's had a full season under his belt to let go of the rust, maybe to increase his mental fortitude. I think he'll have a bounce back year. I think there's a lot of people are writing them off, and they're turning the Eastern Conference into a two-team conference. But I think the Celtics they're gonna irritate. They're just gonna be there. They're gonna like
Still
bother.
have Marcus Smart. That's
Yeah.
an irritator.
Yeah.
You're never gonna count out Brad Stevens, right? That dude took Butler to the NCAA finals 2 years in a row. Like,
Enes Kanter is a great offensive big, not necessarily on the other side of the court, but he could score. He did really well with Portland in this last playoffs.
I think if anyone can hide Cantor's defensive lack of defensive ability, it's Brad Stevens. I'm pretty sure he could.
and I think the issue too with the Celtics last year is the emergence of Kyrie kind of made Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum kind of regress a little bit in their games. Like
Absolutely.
when 2 years ago, Tatum and Brown carried them in that playoffs.
They went to Game 7 with LeBron James, one game away from the finals.
They're ahead
Terry
too.
Rozier.
And they
Worst project
grew
of the
up so fast in that finals, and all of a sudden that Kyrie's back this year. Like they kind of just took the back seat to him a lot of the times this year. I mean, if you guys saw that series against Milwaukee, it was just Kyrie chucking up 25 shots a game. Like there was no semblance of any kind of offense from anybody else. Just the whole team in general was just a complete mess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
Staying on the topic of Kyrie, how do we feel about Brooklyn? They made a huge splash.
You're really killing it with these segues right now. It's just like.
Well, obviously we all want Kevin Durant to be healthy, hope for the best. I think if anyone, based on his skill set, if anyone could come back from this, I think he really can because he's so skilled. I think he will be able to come back from this because nobody could block his shot regardless. I really hope. I love watching the guy play. I hope he comes back fully healthy, but I think he will be out the next season. What do we think about how they did overall? Aside from that, they picked up Taurean Prince, they got Kyrie, they added DeAndre Jordan. What do we think about Brooklyn?
So Brooklyn was one of the teams that I liked, particularly because of D'Angelo Russell. So I was a little sad to see him go.
Big D'Lo fan, Mr. Yosh over there.
Big D'Lo fan. A lot of Lakers don't like him. Soft part.
I think a lot of
I
Laker
think
fans.
I'm like the only Laker fan that doesn't like D'Lo.
Lots of Laker fans have soft spots for D'Lo.
Okay, well I may have been wrong, but I was a little sad when he left. I think they did a great job in signing KD. I think the contingency for I'll say if Kyrie was going to join, then KD was going to join, and vice versa. So I wasn't, Kyrie's a baller, but he's got some like weird ass like takes. So that's always it's a locker room and a culture concern. It may be like funny and like memey that he talks about like aliens and like all that shit, but there's also a culture concern, and I feel like that's what the Celtics experienced. So both are extremely talented players. I think they'll make the playoffs this year for sure, and I think
they will make the playoffs.
Yeah,
for sure. Do you think the same thing, Lawrence?
They'll yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be because of Kyrie. I think they have a really good supporting cast there. Like we haven't even mentioned their best offensive player there in Karis LeVert.
Karis LeVert's the man.
Yeah, I think him, Dinwiddie, Kyrie will make a solid, backcourt.
I think one of those guys has to go, though.
I think one of them's getting traded for a wing, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know who. I don't know. I think there's gonna be definitely some chemistry issues starting off. I think they're gonna make it into the playoffs comfortably. I don't think they're gonna be able to contend. I don't think Durant's gonna be fully healthy coming in the year. I think all those people who are placing, futures bets on the Nets at plus 2,000 when they heard of the Kyrie and KD trade are kind of in over their heads a little bit. I think it was a little rushed. Because I don't think, first of all, you mentioned KD. I wish he was healthy, but I think we've seen the prime of KD. I don't think he's gonna, it's very hard. Yeah, maybe he isn't as explosive. His offensive game doesn't revolve around being explosive, but I think all those fadeaways that he does, like the little mid-range fadeaways that he does, it's gonna take a toll on him, and he might not get the same lift that he did before, where he was able to shoot over people because of that bum Achilles. So who knows? I think we've seen the prime of KD, but it's also KD. I don't want to be the guy doubting him. Have you seen those off-season workout videos that he's been posting on his IG?
I have.
I don't know. It's KD. I'm not gonna doubt him, but I don't think the Nets have what it takes to, make it to the ship this year. But I think they'll make the playoffs. And it's just because it's the Eastern Conference. If they were put in the Western Conference, I don't even know if I'll feel like they would make the playoffs in the Western Conference.
Yeah, the East gives them a much better chance. What about their crosstown rivals, the New York Knicks? What do we make of their offseason? They were initially having visions of Zion, then they had visions of Anthony Davis and KD and Kyrie.
Yeah, so
they ended up with basically a less fed version of Zion.
So speaking of Zion, I thought it was hilarious. Before the draft started, they had odds on who was gonna, or what pick the Knicks were gonna get. And they were the favorite to get the number one pick at plus 300 odds, when all the other teams who just had the other four teams with the same percentage chance of getting the number one pick were plus 400, and then the Knicks were plus 250. I don't know how that made any sense. I don't know why.
Was feeding into the fans buying into the conspiracy theories.
I don't know why people just thought oh yeah, Zion's totally going to the Knicks. I'm so confused by that. But yeah, speaking of the Knicks, yeah, they need to sell that franchise. Dolan needs to. That franchise is a dumpster fire. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. I was a fan. I know some people were really pissed about the Porzingis move. I thought the logic behind that was solid, but the execution afterward was abysmal. They did not handle that well at all. Signing Taj Gibson, and I do like Wayne Ellington as a player, but Elfrid Payton. No, who else did they get? Bobby Portis.
Yeah, this all goes back to right. Yeah, this all goes back to how bad their contracts were from before. They had to shed that Noah contract that was whatever the heck it was. They had to shed that Tim Hardaway contract. They just have. Yeah, they've just signed awful contracts the last few years, and that they just I don't know. I don't know what to do about them.
I think they should have gone with what I have said before about when you know you're going to have a bunch of salary cap space, you know you're not going to get the elite talent, absorb some, not so great contracts and get a bunch of assets. Why spend all that on Taj Gibson, Bobby Portis, Alfred Payton when you could have maybe gotten 3 or 4 extra first round picks by taking back some, bad contracts?
I want to say this from the Knicks. I want to shed some positive light on them.
I'm here.
They have Mitchell Robinson, who was a revelation last
Love
year.
Mitchell Robinson.
The defensive center. I'm a big RJ Barrett fan. I feel like
I'm not with you on that.
He's going to do well in this league. He's better suited as a point forward, and he's going to thrive with the Knicks, or he's going to just bring the Knicks from whatever abyss they're in right now. They still have Dennis Smith Jr., who's an explosive point guard. I feel like he's, he had that big first year with Dallas, and then he just hasn't gotten a lot of attention recently.
Great dunker.
But I think he's going to have a good year. They have Julius Randle, one of the
I love Julius Randle.
Favorites, ex-Laker.
These fits don't make sense to me, and
they don't make sense. It's like weird. Like, why do you have like 4 power forwards? But they're all 2-year contracts with second-year team options, which gives the Knicks some flexibility. They're aiming for that 2021 free agent.
It'll allow them to strike out again in 2 years.
Josh, you should know all about teams with 4 power forwards, right?
Yeah, we stacked them in Chicago.
Yeah, but I think the whole thing with the Knicks is just like they have this hard time. Like they're like, Madison Square Garden is like the #1 attraction for people to go to at night. Like you want to go there to watch games, so they have to like balance this whole like, oh, we need a roster like a somewhat okay team because people like coming to our games and watching because we generate so much revenue, versus like actually competing in the NBA. And I don't know how they're gonna be able to. Like, I think Dolan cares so much about that business aspect of it that it's kind of clouding his judgment on making solid personnel decisions.
Yeah, he hasn't made a solid personnel decision in God knows how long. This next team is the team that I think is probably flying under the radar still among, like, casual NBA fans, at least. I think the Pacers are actually a legitimate team.
I'm going to mention my team for a second, but... We'll get to there.
We'll get there. Adding Malcolm Brogdon, getting back a healthy Victor Oladipo, adding Jeremy Lamb, Miles Turner, was a shot blocking machine last year. They are a legitimate playoff team. What do you guys think about Indiana?
They're a solid team. They
Sabonis too.
They remind me of like the Jazz,
You took the words right out of my mouth. Like they're just a solid team. Like they're not exciting, they're not bad, they're just solid.
Yeah. Got the Holiday connection with Justin and Aaron. Maybe they just need to get Drew.
I mean you put Drew and Oladipo in a backcourt. That's pretty spicy stuff.
Yeah, they're a very solid playoff team. Like it's just not exciting to talk about them, Like they're just gonna make the playoffs and maybe make it to the second round.
They almost eliminated LeBron in the first round 2 years ago.
They did.
And they're a legitimate team.
I really hope Oladipo gets healthy because he's the backbone of that team and everything revolves around him.
I feel like their roster construction it faltered a little bit this offseason. They stacked a lot of guards, but they lost Thaddeus Young and Bogdanovic. What is it? Bogdanovic?
They're both Bogdanoviches. One is Bogdan and one is Bojan.
Okay, so
they lost Bojan.
So Bojan and Thad, they're the 3 and 4, and then I don't know who Sabonis is better suited as a 5, and playing alongside as a 4 isn't really his natural fit. So I'm not sure what their plan is to fill out the starting lineup.
They picked up T.J. Warren too in a salary dump from the Suns.
That's
Might
right.
be a good bench scorer for them. Maybe even start.
Yeah, so Warren would be the 3.
Yeah.
Then-
They have T.J. McConnell.
That guy is amazing.
Yeah, they
That's-
picked up so many guards. It's actually
Love T.J. McConnell.
crazy.
We're just gonna, try to speed through these last few teams. We can briefly talk about Miami. I know Yash is a huge Jimmy Butler fan. So what's your quick thought on that, Yash?
They're gonna surprise a lot of people. They're gonna sneak into the playoffs. I feel. Bam Adebayo. He was basically getting starters minutes, taking it away from Hassan Whiteside. You've got you still got Goran Dragic. You still got Justice Winslow. They drafted the Tyler Herro.
That guy's balled out.
Yeah. So, and Jimmy Butler is going to bring it. He's not going to take this. He's going to make the playoffs. That's just him. So that's my short and quick spiel about the Heat. And I'm excited to buy a Miami Vice jersey of Jimmy Butler.
Those jerseys look sick.
Those jerseys are fresh. I'm not gonna lie. Those especially those black ones. Those are real fresh.
I have an excuse to buy one now. So
Yeah, I mean, Miami. They're very another good but very boring team that'll probably make the playoffs. Not
so
too much.
So let's get to a potentially exciting team. What do you think about the Hawks, Lawrence?
Oh, that was what I was thinking about. But yeah, the Hawks, they're good. They're exciting, but bad.
You haven't been watching these Trae Young videos where he's just balling out and
yeah, I mean,
sniping
Trae Young
from
had
deep?
such a great second half of the season last year. Like, dude carried and forgot their center's name again.
Talking about John Collins.
John Collins balled out too, but it's just like
they had Edmond, they had Alex Len.
Alex Len. I mean, Alex Len is this guy who has huge potential for the last 8 years, who has never realized that potential and will never be able to realize it because he fouls like 5 people in 5 minutes.
I think the Hawks are actually going to make the playoffs. That is my spicy take in the East. I don't know.
Ooh, I am going to take you up on that.
I kind of want to take you up on that too.
Okay, I will gladly take some boba from both of you.
You realize like Trae Young still has to play defense, right?
I'm okay with that. He's gonna score a lot of points. And
The Hawks are going to score 130 points and give up 150. You want to take the over on every single Hawks game.
Don't forget, when Trae Young gets tired, they'll mask his defense with that of Cam Reddish.
hey,
And if not Cam Reddish, we'll have Evan Turner backing him up for his defensive prowess.
John Collins is a beast, man. Don't sleep on that, man.
He's great.
I think the Hawks will sneak in. They will be this year's Orlando. Is that the team that you wanted to talk about, Lawrence?
I did want to talk about Orlando.
What is it that you want to tell us about Orlando?
Orlando, yeah. So there's this guy who was the number 1 pick a couple years back that Orlando has on their roster, who has not shown his potential yet.
You think he's going to find his potential?
I think he's going to have every opportunity that he never had with the Sixers to prove what he's got. I think what Orlando lacked was a true point guard. They've been playing MCW and DJ Augustine like 48 minutes a game, and they still made the playoffs as like a 7th seed last year.
Was amazing last year. Terrence Ross was in the discussion for 6th man.
Oh, for sure. Both of those guys, Evan Fournier had a down year, but he's gonna be back. Aaron Gordon is still a thing. I don't know what to say.
It's another solid team. I think I'm curious to see if maybe this is a team that maybe jumps into the trade market because there are some improvements that they can make. They also picked up Al-Farouq Aminu, and maybe Jonathan Isaac figures out how to play consistently.
They still have Mo Bamba, who in his short spurts while he was starting, he showed he had potential, and I think it all kind of.
If anything, with Mo Bamba, at least you have a banger for a track that you could play at home games.
Oh, for real. Yeah, I mean, it honestly boils down to, first off, like, that division is trash. Like, they should win that division again, I think. They should, like, it really depends on, Markel Fultz is who I've been trying to talk about if you guys didn't know. But yeah, it's whether or
Yes.
not he lives up to his potential. Uh, it's the thing is, like, they took a very low risk investment in Markel Fultz with huge upside, like number one overall pick upside. And if he gets his shoulder problem fixed, who knows? Like,
That was a very low risk move for Orlando, and I commend them for taking that risk because if that pans out, that they're gonna look like geniuses.
yeah, like they've returned basically their entire core. They've added a few good players, and now they have this Markel Fultz X factor that we're not talking about. They were already a playoff team last year, and with another year under everybody's belt, like I mean,
Yeah.
they definitely they took a couple of games off, or I think they took one game off the Raptors in
He
the
did get
playoffs.
one.
Like the first game.
And if Jonathan Isaac can show some consistency, that guy actually might end up being something. The last two teams that we have to talk about, the first one is Detroit. I'm going to give that one to Yash because it has his favorite player in the NBA.
Favorite.
Talk about him a little bit.
Detroit is a. They're like what the Heat have been the past few years. They're gonna be that perennial 8 seed team. They're not gonna be terrible. They're not gonna be amazing. They're just gonna be like in this NBA purgatory, if you want to call
You
it.
get your boy Derrick Rose though. So how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, so Derrick Rose, that's biggest what if story. If he's doing this after all the injuries and whatnot, imagine what he could have done in his prime. Just sad, but I think he's gonna fill seats for sure at Detroit's new arena. Blake Griffin, still a powerhouse. I feel like Andre Drummond, he's just there. He's almost there. He's almost
I
there.
think Drummond will get traded. That's my take on the Pistons this year. I think they move on to Drummond, and that's a candidate that I think once they struggle out the gates, you'll start hearing more talk about that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Drummond. I feel like he gets talked a lot about, just like he's about to break out and he's about to become that like 24 and 16 type player, right? Just like pulling down boards like no other, and just putting up massive amounts of points.
I
But
was not a 24-16 guy last year. Felt like he was on my fantasy team.
24,
I
16,
can never see him being a 24 and 16 guy. And if we could just give a few seconds to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are surprisingly still an NBA franchise.
We have to give a few seconds. I feel like
I honestly do not want to. Sorry if there's any Cleveland Cavalier fan. I don't think that even exists. But if there is one listening to this, really sorry. But any take on them for this upcoming season, Lawrence?
I'm ready for my Cedi Osman breakout season this year. I was promised a Cedi Osman breakout season last year, but injuries hampered that. But I'm ready for it this year.
Is this the year that Kevin Love gets moved?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think it has to happen, right?
It's got to happen. Like
That's the obvious trade candidate I see. In the
he's
NBA.
going to Portland.
that would definitely help.
That would be a really good pickup. I would love that actually. That's a good call. Or Houston would be a good call too with his buddy Russell Westbrook. So just to recap, you guys have the Sixers making it to the finals. Am I right on that?
I got the Sixers.
Yep.
And I have the Bucks. And what were your Western Conference picks again? If you could remind our audience.
I have the Nuggets.
I got the Rockets.
And I have the Clippers. Who do you guys?
Wow, way to have the most square picks. Clippers and Bucks in the finals.
It's the NBA. It's all about predictability for the most part. Let's not count last year.
I don't think anybody had Milwaukee in the finals last year, did they? Or sorry, the Raptors in the finals last year.
No,
I had Toronto winning it all.
you did. That was an amazing bet. Who's winning that Rockets and Sixers matchup, Yash?
I got the Sixers. I think they're just going to be like Westbrook driving First of all, that entire team I think is just a defensive plus. Their starting lineup with the Sixers. They just have so much like length. They also just like big bodies too. Like you try to drive in that, like you're gonna get smothered. You're gonna get hammered. Also, the biggest thing is that Embiid can now rest without the team, getting
Suffering.
going. Yeah, just like getting destroyed and the other team going on at 17.
That was like honestly the worst thing as a better last year in the playoffs against the Nets. Like I think Embiid was listed as questionable every single game against the Nets, and you're just like, all right, so when am I gonna get injury report so I can finally place my bet on this game? Because I don't know if Embiid's sitting or if he's playing.
Like the line is going to change from like +6 to -6. Like
Yeah, like he changes the line by like 5 by himself every single time. It's
valuable player. So what's your take on Nuggets and Sixers, Lawrence?
That's close. You know what? I haven't made up my mind yet for that.
You're gonna have to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with the Sixers. I think that they're definitely a lot. They're very suited to win the championship this year. I don't know what their odds are right now. They're probably like the 4th or 5th favorite. But if I were a betting man, and I am, I'd definitely go and place my bets on the Sixers to win. I think
there's value there, right?
One more year of experience. They come out from the. I think another thing is like coming out of the Eastern Conference, they're gonna have like one tough series. Versus like the Western Conference, it's gonna be a crapshoot. Like it's a brawl every single series. One versus 8 is gonna be 2 competent teams. Whereas like you're coming out in the East, you're gonna have 2 series of kind of cakewalks before you get to the Eastern Conference Finals when you face your first test, and they're gonna be better, well rested, I think. So that's my take.
We both have the Sixers winning. So how about this on 3? Why don't you guys tell me your Finals MVP?
Hold up. What? Oh, you.
Yeah. What about your pick? Oh, you picked the Bucks.
I want to hear your Finals MVP though.
All right. I got mine.
All right. Finals MVP.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm thinking about this.
You're supposed to do it on 3, guys. What are you guys doing?
I mean, it's a pretty easy decision for Finals MVP. Yeah. I think.
Does his name rhyme with Reed?
Like Patrick Reed? Yeah. A little more likable, though.
All right. I have the Bucks winning it all over the Clippers. And I have my boy Giannis getting Finals MVP and regular season MVP again. I am all in on the Giannis train. I will buy all those stocks.
So one point that I like to mention about the Bucks, backtracking because I completely forgot to mention earlier, like I feel like that losing Brogdon is going to be a bigger deal than you think. Like Brogdon carried them in the playoffs in the final moments of every game. Like
he missed like the whole first round and a half though, didn't he?
Yeah, but I meant the final 5 minutes of every game against the Raptors, Brogdon was the one with the ball and running the offense.
That's a 50-40-90 player with solid defense.
No, look, Malcolm Brogdon is a great player. I think that's you can't replace what he did last year. I think that's gonna hamper them for sure in some regard. But I am all in on this Giannis growth.
You think Embiid will be, or Giannis will be the closer for them this year now, finally?
I think Chris Middleton will still be the closer. I think Giannis will be more comfortable doing it. I don't think he's going to shy away from it per se. I don't think he's going to be afraid of taking those jumpers this year. But I think Chris Middleton will still be the closer. I think this team comes back. They have the same coach. They've got the chemistry. They've kept most of the core, and I don't mind what they did by picking up Wesley Matthews and Robin Lopez. I think those are solid pickups. You get the Lopez twins in Milwaukee. That's going to be a little entertaining, I think. I'm all in on this team. I really am all in on Giannis taking it to another level next year.
Feel ya. All right. Well, on that note, talking about regular season MVP picks, you gave yours, Drew, as Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Yash?
I got Steph. That's
You got Steph Curry as your regular season MVP.
yeah. I think he's going to come back. There's been a lot of either the Warriors just haven't been talked about as the contender, or they've been talked about in a negative light. I think Steph is going to come out and he's going to go off. He's going to have basically what we should have seen the last 3 years. We're going to see it now.
No
And
KD, no Clay. A lot more shots coming, Steph.
the Warriors are going to be really fun to watch. They're going to run like you're going to have a floor general on the court at all times, and I think Kerr is going to do like he's going to have fun with this team. And I think Steph is just going to go off. He's going to be proving a lot of haters wrong.
What about you, Lawrence? Who's your MVP next year?
I already made a bet on this guy, but it's Paul George. I think that Clippers winning, if they do end up near the top of the Western Conference, they like giving the MVP award to the best player on the best team. And I think Kawhi is going to miss too many games from load management, and you're going to see Paul George basically average what he did average this year with the Thunder, while he was like, he was an MVP candidate for a good half of the year this year. So I think Paul George is definitely in a place to succeed and finally get that MVP he deserves.
Wow, that is
A spicy hot take.
little spicy take right there. Are we bobaing on the MVP or no?
If one of us, honestly, if one of you guys get your, I mean, I'm not giving it to you if you get Giannis, right? Come on. You've gone with the two squarest teams and now the squarest MVP pick. If Steph wins MVP, I'll give you Yasha Boba.
Josh, I'll give you a Verbena, Josh. We'll take it another level if Steph gets MVP.
Steph or PG. None of this Giannis bullshit.
Yeah.
Look,
The other
guys,
one that would be interesting is
this would be great
Anthony
for my
Davis.
fantasy team too, because
Yeah.
this is my keeper.
I think AD is going to be a good pick too, if the Lakers do well, if they at least make playoffs.
All right. Next up, we have our most improved player.
Oh, most improved player.
Most improved player.
I think Yash already gave his spicy take earlier.
Yeah, the Siakam take, the spicy Siakam take.
You think Pascal Siakam wins most improved player next year?
I haven't really thought about it. I'm trying to think of the rookies that came in. Who were the rookies last season? Trae Young, Doncic. I mean, like how much
Better can Doncic get? My God, I don't know.
like if he like takes the next level, they've also gotten a lot of help. Aton, you know what? I'm sticking with Siakam.
Okay, fair. What about you, Lawrence?
I got my boy Markelle Fultz.
Markelle Fultz.
That's
Most
like
improved player.
that's a great.
What do you think he's gonna bring to the table next year?
Better than what DJ Augustine and MCW have given them the last couple years.
But is
I
that
think-
saying much?
I think he can get a solid like 16, 5 and 5. I think that's a very huge jump from his career averages. I mean, he had a triple double. He was the youngest guy in the NBA with the triple double, right?
Yeah,
So,
he took it from Lonzo.
yep.
Think so.
So the potential's there. He just needs to get healthy. What about you, Drew?
Man, I to be completely honest with you, I have not thought about most improved player off the top of my head. I am going to give most improved player. You see how I'm like stretching this out by
Yeah, go for it. Take your time. We'll move on and let you think about this, okay?
Okay, fair.
Sixth
I'll
man
come
of
back
the
to
year.
this. I'll
Yeah.
come back to this. I need to think about that one a little bit. What about rookie of the year?
Rookie of the year.
I know Drew's
Josh had
pick.
an interesting take on this.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, you.
Um. Oh. Oh man, it's I think. Actually, you know what? I'm sort of leaning towards Ja.
Oh wow, so you switched over from RJ, huh?
I think RJ's. When they signed like 45 power forwards, um, I'm like, okay, so the Sixers have zero spacing. I feel like Ja is going to have a much more efficient and a better season, but I think RJ is going to have a better long term career.
Okay. I am going to continue with my theme of taking super obvious, non-spicy picks, and I'm going to pick Zion. I think he's going to run away with it. I think the Pelicans will be close to competing for a playoff spot, and I think he's going to get so much hype, there's no way they can't give him the award. NBA wants to give that guy any type of attention he can get. So that's my take on that.
I mean, Ja would have been my first pick too. So let it be on record that Ja was my first pick.
I do recall this.
But because both Zion and Ja are taken, I'm going to go with Darius Garland.
Darius
Oh,
Garland. Ooh.
skipping over to RJ.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think that Cavs team's so bad that they have no choice but to
Someone has
play
to do
him.
something.
They have to play him like 40 minutes a game. He's gonna get the minutes. Like he's honestly like he's gonna get 40. He's probably gonna be the number one option. Him or who was the guy they had last year who just shot a bunch and was really inefficient?
Sexton, Garland.
Colin Sexton. Yeah,
Yeah. I finally came up with my most improved player.
let's
Uh,
hear it.
I don't know if it's going to qualify, though. I'm going to say Jason Tatum goes from his second year regression into all star discussion this year.
That's a very good pick. I can definitely see that.
I mean, I don't know if that qualifies because he may just be going back to a slightly better form of what he did the latter half of year one. But I think he will elevate from, you know, the regressed state he was in his sophomore year to all-star caliber this year.
It's a good pick.
I like it.
You know who's also in a great position is Terry Rozier.
He is also
He
a
is in
very
a
good pick.
great position, but
Oh my!
there's
See, but this is where the most improved player topic gets kind of. Is it about the opportunity or is it about him actually improving? You know what I mean?
I've I don't know what the criteria was. I mean, like if you're like on a shitty team that's been shitty for the last 3 years you've been playing, but you've been improving at a higher rate than let's say a player that has gone from a shitty team to a playoff team or helped their shitty team to a playoff team, but they haven't improved as much. I'm not sure what the metric is and what they weigh more. So it's a yeah, it's
It's a balance between those two things. I think for me, like I want to actually see that improvement rather than just, hey, like this guy went from having 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Yeah, naturally his stats are going to go up. But, if you give that guy the same opportunity, relatively the same touches, and you see that improvement in their game, I think that's what most improved should be. I think Jason Tatum's going to come back more of an array of moves. I think he's going to start taking threes more again. He started getting mid-range happy last year. And I think he's going to get to that all-star level.
honestly there's a lot of great candidates. I think JJJ from Memphis is a good one.
Triple
Um,
J, yeah,
yeah,
he's a great option as well. Um, the last topic that I wanted to talk about with you guys was what are some players around the league that you think will not end up being in the jersey that they are currently assigned to be wearing? I think we discussed one in Kevin Love. I think that's probably the most obvious candidate there is. What other players do you think will be on their way out of their current locations?
CP3, Bradley Beal.
um,
I agree with both of those.
two of the four power forwards from New York. I think specifically one of the vet. I think Todd Gibson may be shipped off to a contending team.
I think one of the guards from Chicago might get shipped off too.
Yeah, probably.
What's a location that you would want to see some of these players go? Like, what's a destination you would like to see CP3 go?
I feel like there's a team out here in LA that might need a point guard.
I don't know how they would
make 2035
that though. Yeah, there's too many cap dynamics with that.
Yeah.
I read something about CP3 to the T-Wolves, which I thought was intriguing, because that team is, got some awful contracts, at least one in particular. I think that would be a good way for CP3 to end his career, go out with a great big man to run the pick and roll with, and Cat. I think that would be fun to watch for me personally.
I think Portland is one guy away from being a contender. I think the Magic could also use one of these pieces as well.
Any other players come to mind? Goran Dragic, DeMar DeRozan, possibly. Anyone else?
Well, I wanted to say Chris Paul, but I wanted to say Chris Paul to the Bucks.
Interesting. For what? Bledsoe and something?
Bledsoe, Lure, and maybe like a couple of picks. They'd have
got to make the salaries match, though. That's the key.
Yeah, you gotta pass in maybe trade Wes Matthews or something, or I don't know.
I think it would be fun to see some more movement. I think we're seeing so many cool duos now. That's like the new theme with the NBA. It's awesome. Like, we went from the super team, big three, stacked squad era to now we're in at least possibly a couple years of at least having duos be the new wave. Duos and role players. And I think it's awesome because now we're having this discussion and we don't really definitively know who's gonna win it. I mean, if the Warriors were healthy last year, I think most of us would probably still think that they would have won had KD been fully healthy. I don't see them losing to the Raptors, even though Kawhi played amazing. I don't see that happening. And pretty much anyone that watched NBA could have called that from the beginning of the season.
And the Warriors are just one offensive player away from winning. Like,
exactly,
just had so much on his shoulders every game.
And we've got so many dynamic duos in the NBA now. I think it's really exciting, and I think the teams that don't have those have a direction now with these young players and these assets that they've collected. So the NBA is becoming, it's having a lot more parity. I think there's legitimately at least 6 to 8 teams that could make a run at the title. I don't think we've been able to say that the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
I wanted to make a point of a lot of the players from the Thunder, maybe a lot of the vets from the Thunder may be traded.
Steven Adams.
Like Gallinari is on that team.
Yeah. They may collect more picks.
Yeah.
Or they may flip all those assets they've got and turn that into something else. I mean, they have so much flexibility, as do the Grizzlies. It's good to see that teams are finally understanding, hey, like, we can rebuild by collecting all these assets when we take back some of these contracts. Like, they took a worse contract in CP3 and turned that into 2 additional assets. And, Andre Iguodala to the Grizzlies, they essentially absorbed that and got a free first-round pick. I'm a huge fan of teams doing that, and I'm surprised that teams like the Knicks don't, partake in doing that. It kind of baffles me that we're almost in 2020 and front offices aren't understanding that at this point. Any closing statements that you guys have about the East to wrap up this part B of our first podcast?
The Chicago Bulls are going to be making the playoffs.
Wow. I thought my Atlanta Hawks takes was spicy.
I mean, it's not like it's not like they're making the Western Conference playoffs. They're making the Eastern Conference playoffs.
That's true.
So a 10th seed record in the West would be good enough for the 8th seed at least. But if they make the playoffs, we're gonna see. It's gonna be fun and exciting team. I hope everyone tunes into more Bulls games. Kobe White, he's a dynamic player. He's got the potential to be a floor general. You've got Levine, you've got Markkanen, you've got Otto Porter Jr., you've got Wendell Carter. They signed Thad Young.
They've got a lot of young talent
coming back. You know, they got Arcidiacono, whatever his name is.
Arcidiacono.
Arcidiacono, yeah.
Satoransky too.
Yeah, Satoransky. They've got they're a young team, but they're young, they're exciting, and I think they're about to reach that point where they're going to start seriously contending for a playoff spot. They're going to be very fun, and I hope they do well.
What's your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited. Not as excited as I am for the Western Conference. It's a different kind of excited. Like all these young teams have so much potential, and I just want to see which one of those teams end up breaking out this year in the East. Like the West, we already know who the good teams are. It's going to be a dogfight to the finish, and that's going to be the exciting part. In the East, the exciting part is watching these kids grow up in front of us and see what kind of leadership roles they take on for the respective teams.
I personally am excited to see how low these win totals will be for these bottom feeder East teams. I don't know how the Charlotte Hornets are going to win more than 20 games. I don't see it happening. I don't think the Cavs are going to. They may not win 20 games. I don't know how many games New York's going to win. Washington. There are some real dumpster fire teams in the East. I think I am excited about one young team that was kind of a dumpster fire last year, which was my hot take. I think the Atlanta Hawks are going to make the playoffs this year. I think Trae Young is going to continue his surging that he had in the second half of last season, and I think he's going to go off and average 23, 24 points this year. I think he's going to be a legitimate scorer and possibly even sneak into an all-star spot. My other team that I want people to look out for that I mentioned earlier is Indiana. I think they're flying under the radar, and I think they will be a tough out. I think they're going to make it to the second round of the playoffs in the East this year. I think Toronto is going to not make the playoffs. That is my other spicy take. I think they will miss the playoffs this year. I think somebody on that team is going to get hurt, and I think they're going to end up flipping some of those tradable assets and rebuilding. I think Marc Gasol, Kyle Lowry, some of those guys out there that are older may end up being flipped. They're going to rebuild around Pascal Siakam, and they will not make the playoffs this year. And finally, I think Giannis Antetokounmpo will elevate to the best player in the league status. I think he wins regular season MVP and finals MVP. And we're going to wonder what the hell this guy's ceiling is after next season. I think he's going to go down as an all-timer. He's going to come out next year on fire, and people are going to be shocked at his new jump shot. That's my last take.
I think it's going to look really funny when your super square takes at the end of the year, we're going to look back on it, and we're going to see them completely wrong.
Hey, I'll gladly buy you guys boba if that happens, but I'm all in on Giannis.
Are you down for a boba bet if any one of your 3 hot takes is wrong?
No, I'm not going to do that.
I had to ask.
Man, I can't go that far. Thank you guys for joining us for part B of episode 1. This has been really fun. Thank you, Yash, for joining us. Hopefully you can continue to join us for more episodes. Me and Lawrence are going to start diving into fantasy football because, yes, it is that time of year, ladies and gentlemen. So please join us for a little mock draft special that we do for episode 2. And I think we will start discussing the NFL season and some fantasy going forward in the near future. So thank you once again, guys. This is the Boardmen Don't Get Paid podcast, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Yeah.